growing up? What was life like for you as a kid?
So let's see. I was born up in Toledo, but I got no history background whatsoever there because we moved before I think I even turned 1 or right after I turned 1 years old. Family got moved down here to Columbus. Grew up in the northwest part of Columbus. Lived here for pretty much all of my life. It's not a big long romantic, traveling across the country, whatever kind of thing. It's just straight up Columbus ever since I was born, pretty much. Um, yeah, grew up. I went to Olentangy High School. First or last graduating class when there's only one high school at the time. I was actually when I first started, it was all just one single K through 12 path at that point. The next year they opened the second elementary, and at the time of this podcast right now, there's like 26 elementaries in that school district and
Well,
4 or 5, maybe 6 high schools. I've lost count at this
I'm
point.
I, I'm curious of your perspective because what Olentangy schools and Lewis Center and Powell is today isn't what it was when you were growing up there,
No.
and obviously we're in the real estate space and we have big major developments and small developments happening in our city with
Yeah.
Intel and Honda and other businesses coming, and this has been a conversation I've been talking about in the last 5 to 7 days because every time there's one of those Intel talks that Betsy puts on, it always just
Yeah.
hypes me up even more. So now it's like even more top of mind. And,
Yeah.
I see, kind of what has happened to Lewis Center area and Powell and all that, 20 some plus years ago. I
Yeah.
see that happening or going to be happening, past Delaware now, past Sunbury now, past, Johnstown now. What has that been like, seeing obviously you're now in the business, but seeing the development and the growth over the time?
Ever since being like a kid, I remember going to the directional malls and city center and all that. That's where we went as kids. Parents take you to go shop for your new. Well, we were just talking about kids in school and it just got into summer break. But when you get back around at the end of summer and you're going for doing your back to school shopping, and we went to those malls and got to stop at, I forget even what the name of it was, but like the candy shop that was there. That was like the best thing to go to and fill up a bag full of candy. So over the evolution of that, like then those malls aren't what they what they are today is not what they were then. I remember Tuttle Mall, Polaris, Easton, all that stuff coming in, and like Lewis Center, nobody really knew what that was before Polaris came in there. That was just a grand vision of what that area could be when it's just all farmland and dirt and whatever there. All these areas have kind of gone through that evolution where somebody had a vision of what this could become. From Lewis Center to Powell. Powell used to be an actual Big Bear farm that was there instead of just a neighborhood called Big Bear Farms.
Yeah.
Everything else there was actually a Big Bear grocery store. They aren't there anymore. In New Albany is like the same thing. I remember when I was in high school, I was a wrestler and going to a tournament out of season, but there was another entry of another wrestler that was from New Albany, and I was like, I've never heard of I'd never heard of New Albany. I'm like, I couldn't find it on a map anywhere. And this is probably like 2001, 2002, around that time. And yeah, it's just country boy coming in to wrestle there. I've talked with other people that have grown up in that area and maybe graduated in like the 80s or 90s, and they're like, yeah, we're just a bunch of country boys, farm, whatever stuff. And then you look at what's happened in New Albany now, and obviously with Intel and everything that preceded, that Les Wexner had a vision for that area. Like it wasn't that 20 years prior whatsoever. Yeah. So like all these areas, somebody had a vision and it came to life. And now we see what happens to the valleys. We see what happens to the demand in those areas to be in those spots. So
yeah,
I somebody saw a vision with Intel coming in here too.
Yeah.
So it's gonna happen.
Yeah. Well, did you have any hobbies and did you play sports or anything growing up?
Playing sports, I was in football, I was in wrestling. I'm now into the middle-aged old man sport, golf. When you did the intro there, I saw people out there golfing, and I'm looking out at the beautiful weather outside right now. I'm like, dude, why are we doing a podcast? Why aren't we on a golf course right now? First day of summer for my kids. We should be out there golfing.
Maybe that's the next iteration of the podcast is we'll just do it live from the tee box or something.
That's brilliant. It's brilliant. But yeah, no, I played football. I wrestled. It's interesting. I did all that from middle school through high school. I actually stopped playing football my senior year because it was around my sophomore year. Coming off of football, I was an offensive, defensive lineman, and they want you to get big and gain weight. And I was, let me see, freshman year, I wrestled 215 pounds. Came off of football. I came in at like 235, 240. And then the decision was to either get back to my weight class at 215 or settle for being a heavyweight, which at that time, I can't remember. I think it was still 275 was the max on that. Prior to that, it was just unlimited weight class. They later, I think, increased it to 285. It's 275. You had that moniker of being a heavyweight at the time. And it didn't sit well with me. I didn't want that title. So I quickly dropped the weight to get down to 215 before we had our first match. And I just kept losing weight through that season. I think I ended the season weighing about 200 pounds. Came back the next season, dropped down to 189 pounds, and then kept going. By my senior year, I was getting a little too light for being offensive, defensive lineman at that time.
Yeah.
Best footwork technique of any of them, but not really the gap filler that I once was. So I decided to quit football to stay focused on wrestling. And so, somewhere along the line, caught the flu in the season when I was already planning on going in at 189. Got the flu, showed up back from at practice next time, 182. I'm like, you know what? There's a little less competition in the next weight class. I'm a lot closer than I was before. You know what? Let's go for this. 171 pounds. And so cut down to that. That was a terrible decision. Because I'm 6'1". I was 6'1" then, and 170 something pounds or 170 pounds is pretty frail. Like I looked like that Victor Wembanyama, that got the number 1 overall draft pick.
Yeah.
If it wasn't 7'4", but the 6'1" version at that point. It was interesting. It was a good lesson at that time of like I'd never done that extreme before, but facing it every day is adversity, fighting through it, overcoming mindset stuff, because I was always a bigger kid and stuff, and so wasn't used to watching what I was eating, cutting back on that stuff. So like a true test of adversity and facing that and overcoming that and having willpower and belief in yourself to achieve something, learn that at a pretty young age through that journey.
I never wrestled a day in my life, but I was always amazed by the discipline it took to cut weight, and doing everything in their power that they could in order to make weight. Like I it was just insane, just watching, the trash bags and the hoodies and, running and, I'm good over here.
We date ourselves when we bring that up too. Cause like they don't allow that stuff anymore. They got hydration tests, minimum body fat, caliper tests, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Kids aren't doing that stuff because it obviously went to extremes. And I think that was when sports really, like high school sports all sports honestly made a transition to go from like, water, don't hydrate. That's weakness. And then that's when Corey Stringer, the former Buckeye Minnesota Viking, had passed away. That immediately remember football practices went from like no water breaks to like water breaks every like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So the power of hydration. It's kind of, I feel like society and sports in general has really evolved since then. Just thinking about, what people are doing with their body. Like, I don't know, what they say, LeBron invests like over $1 million or a couple $1 million into his body every single year. Like the importance of that. And now there's more of an emergence around mental health and psychology and stuff like that. People working through that.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that when I got into the business and I told, agents today is like the mental side of real estate and business and, being your own business owner is way more than what I thought it was ever going to be.
Yeah.
That's to me, that's the majority of the battle of what we face every single day.
Yeah.